Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Blind Press YouTube channel and our 76th coffee stream. And I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody, including my wonderful co-host Skep Talk. I hope your New Year's Eve was good.
It was very fun. Thank you. The Minion stream was very fun, and Happy New Year to you and your family, Blind Press. I hope this is a prosperous and eventful and safe and peaceful New Year for everybody. And thank you for tuning into uh, the coffee stream here, the first one of 2019. Hi, Gene. Hi, Ryan, and hi
Hi,
to the
Chadwick.
Chadwick is there, and all our old friends will be drifting into the coffee room this morning as we discuss what the new year may bring to
I
us.
discovered what happens when you stay up until 2:30 in the morning playing Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, you're gonna love old age.
Well, because I just wanted to try the story mode in the video game, and I was just playing, and all of a sudden, Pincalo and I are like, "Holy shit! It's
Yeah,
2:30 in the morning."
I'm just gonna go another 15 minutes. Just another. All right, one more 20 minute. I got to do this part. And I know how that can go. Back in the day, when video games were invented, yes, folks, I'm not old. There was a game that had amazing popularity. It was the Mortal Kombat of its time. It was called Zork. Zork
I
was
know Zork.
Zork. Yeah, I
I've
was a
heard of
Zorker,
Zork.
and you can still play text-based Zork on online. It's easy to find, and you can even play the old adventure game, which is basically the forerunner of Zork that we used to play on mainframes, and we were playing this. I want to say in the 80s.
Yeah, Zork came out in '82, I believe.
Yeah, and I think Adventure came out in 1975. How old were you then?
Oh, I
So
wasn't
anyway,
even. My dad was 4.
shut the fuck up. Anyway, I had graduated from college. We were misusing the mainframe at the U.S. Naval Postgraduate School. That's actually 1975 was the year that I first encountered email. Now you may
Okay.
say, wait a minute, there was no internet back then. Ha ha! You'd be wrong. DARPANET had existed for about a year, and they were putting in this thing called electronic mail. And the U.S. Navy Supply Corps School, because it had a concentration in computer science, was selected as one of the federal sites to be a part of the DARPANET.
Okay.
So I actually my first email account I got in 1975. That's usually better than anybody else's year, unless they were in the military or worked for the government. They would not have had or worked for Stanford University or UCLA
Hmm.
or MIT, the three places where they had DNS servers. They would they're not going to be better than that. But yeah, anytime and you just what and it was interesting at the time. You just prayed that no, you never wanted to get any email. You never want, and we didn't call it email. We called it electronic mail. You did not want to get any electronic mail because that would mean that something big had happened, and you're the officer of the day. You're
Yeah.
you're the officer in charge, so you're going to have to do a lot of stuff, and probably you'll do something wrong and get in trouble for it. So anyway,
Back in the day, you're like, please let my inbox be empty.
what
Now you're like, why is my inbox empty? Nobody likes me.
do you handle on that? Hi, Jacob. Hey, Will. Seamus. And
Oh,
I think
Nico came. Came.
Nico, Nico's here.
I hope you're back home. I know you had a rough day yesterday with your family, so I hope you're back home with your kitty cats.
Nico's kind of our senior reporter for our news. I like the dispatches from Nico.
I do too.
Uh,
Gunfox gives us news, but it's always to make me mad. Gunfox likes to make me mad.
the world likes to make me mad, actually.
Yeah, that's true. Gunfox just likes to bring it to my attention.
You know, it's so funny how times change. I'm just rambling a little bit here. I opened my Twitter feed this morning. The first thing I see is from Weibo Jones, and it's a recording of her listening to something, and I'm thinking that music sounds pretty good. And I realized she's making fun because she can't stand this music so much. It's so old. It's so, over the hill, and it's Cheap Trick, singing "I Want You to Love Me," that old song from the old hair band Cheap Trick. Had a pretty good guitarist, but otherwise fairly forgettable.
Yeah.
And her 2-line tweet is "Send help," as she's being forced by persons out of the picture to listen to this horrifying music. The next thing under that is Coffee Stream still happening today. Just woke up, so I might be a few minutes late. And then from that, I hear from Titania McGrath. And Titania McGrath, for those of you who don't know, is a funny lady. And she is actually, we think she's a fella who writes under an assumed name. It's a Poe account, and it's funny when people take her seriously. And she got a few this morning, and she said, and so her tweet is entitled. She's quote tweeting a tweet thread, and she says, but the title of it is "Know Your History Before You Lock Horns with Me." So Titania McGrath tweeted out 21 hours ago. As a left-wing activist, my priority is to make sure that corporations in Silicon Valley are empowered to set the limits of acceptable speech. And nice. Mike Ryan replies to her, right, and said, you do realize that setting the limits of free speech completely flies in the face of the U.S. Constitution and, in fact, neutralizes the First Amendment. McGrath replies, the First Amendment was invented to support fascists. It should be abolished. Leslie Otwell says, first of all, the First Amendment was not invented. It was written by a group. If men who wanted to make sure that America became the country they left. You, my dear, need to get an education. You obviously don't know much. Titania, completely nonplussed, says, I have studied history. The First Amendment was invented by the man who built Mount Rushmore. Leslie Otwell comes back and says, Titania, what school did you study at? They need to be whipped for misteaching you. First Amendment was proposed in 1789. Mount Rushmore idea conceived by historian Dwayne Robinson in 1923. First Amendment and Mount Rushmore weren't conceived by the same person. Your history is lacking. Titania McGrath, I have an MA in gender studies. That's all I need. And that's the end of the argument. That's a national treasure, as far as I'm concerned. So I got a kick out of Titania this morning. And it's followed immediately by the red-haired libertarian, who, if you don't follow the red-haired libertarian, you should. If you have libertarian leanings at all, or you just like interesting and very, very intelligent people, very intelligent woman. She's a soulless ginger, but don't let. And she's also an actress on TV. Has been on a number of minor TV shows and had some small roles on. I think. I don't want to mischaracterize, but a couple of shows you would recognize anyway. And so she says, "How did 2018 go? Did Trump start a nuclear war? Did Pence electrocute the gays? Did the women all become handmaids? Did Antifa smash all the fash? Did Mueller finally indict Trump? Did the blue wave take the Senate? Did Trump get impeached? Someone please tell me. I have to know." And she's, of course, tweaking the libs a little bit here because they have been so feverishly hating Trump that they, in all their foam-flecked agony, they have not managed to come up with any ideas.
No, they really haven't.
Having a bit of fun with. And, I do think there is a place, for at least parts of the liberal agenda. And I'd like to see it responsibly put forth. But I don't think you're going to see that done until you replace guys like Schumer and Pelosi, and not replace them with people like Ocasio-Cortez, because she doesn't appear so far to be capable of thought.
I I don't understand how she got into politics.
Oh, look, she's, fairly decent looking Latina woman
Do you know every
who
time
says, I'm going to give everybody a free education, I'm going to give
yeah,
everybody a free phone and a free car.
every time she speaks, or every time she says something, or every time I read something on Twitter, I hear Rosie Perez's voice in my head.
Oh, that's interesting.
Don't be stupid. This is going to be my policy, okay?
That's perfect. That's right on the money. Too.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear when I read Ocasio-Cortez's tweets. Oh my God! Don't be stupid. Everyone gets a free everything, okay?
Government has plenty of money. Just print more.
Yeah, I know, right?
Ask Venezuela how that's working. So
until she starts braying like a mule, says Faithless.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's another guy kind of in this on a somewhat more serious note, and he's another one of my favorite creators, and his name is Tailed Feature. He's a Scot and very talented guy. And he says, what are people's thoughts on free speech when it comes to medical quackery? Should they be allowed to promote dangerous substances and treatments? If not, is that because of the harm it causes people? Then where do we draw the line at what constitutes harm? Just thinking aloud. That's an interesting thing, because we say that, well, the marketplace of ideas, the white hot flame, sterilizes bad ideas. It vaporizes them. And would it do it fast enough to prevent harm from happening? Is it a good thing for stupid people to be taken in? Is that helping Dr. Darwin with his important work that he does for society? Or are we letting lots of people being willfully advertised to their death by people who just want to make a buck off them?
Yeah, that's a hard question.
I think it's going to be one of these things like Justice Potter Stewart in the years ago in the Supreme Court, when asked to give a working definition of pornography, he said it's kind of hard to define, but I'll know it when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the same thing there. I might be hard pressed to pinpoint the dividing line of where that is, but I would know something that was dangerously misleading. And there's something about quick, get this pill that cures cancer, and it's cyanide, right?
Yeah.
You think that's funny, don't you?
I know that that's actually been a thing.
It is. That's what Laetrile was. It was made from peach pits. And peach pits contain bits of
cyanide,
potassium cyanide, right?
Just like apple seeds, right?
Yeah, apple seeds. Any of that particular type of seeded fruit, pitted fruit. It's not seeded fruits, pitted fruits, and contain minute amounts of cyanide. If you ever ate, I don't know why you would, but if you ever ate 12 ounces of apple seeds, for example, you will die 100% of the time. You absolutely will die.
Yeah, I think Piccolo and I, just as a shits and giggles thing, looked up how many apple cores it would take for you to die of cyanide. I think it's something like 100 apple cores or something like that. If you ate 100 apples.
I think it's actually probably more than that, but the reason is because you have to get an ounce of apple seeds. There's less than an ounce of apple seeds. And there might be 100 apples, 100, 120 apples, something like that would be about right. Actually, when I think about
it. Because I think there's something like 15 to 20 seeds in an apple core.
Yeah, it depends on the breed of apple too. So, good point. Anyway.
I honestly eat the entire apple core.
But
is that a bad thing?
We've got, yeah, I do too. But if you just eat one at a time, you won't absorb enough of the cyanide. Your body can actually absorb bits of cyanide, and it just does away with it. It the problem is when your body gets overwhelmed by it, what happens is the carbon nitrogen uh, bonds to oxygen better than hemoglobin does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like dying of carbon monoxide. You die exactly the same way as you do from carbon monoxide poisoning. It's just it happens a lot faster. It's a you deprive your body of oxygen. I mean, nothing about you changes. The only thing about you is you start to drool. That's a nerve reaction, and then you fall over dead as a stone. There's a famous YouTube video of a guy killing himself with cyanide. He's in a courtroom. A judgment has just gone against him. He's just realized that he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail. He's been a millionaire lawyer for a long time. He pops his cyanide capsule in his mouth. The next thing you see, he's falling over next to his attorney, and he's dead.
Wow.
Interesting. So, but that got morbid quickly. My point in saying that is that with respect to Tail's question, medical quackery.
Somebody in chat said, I think that falls under the same category as yelling fire in a crowded theater.
It can.
But where
it can cross there. It
find that line? Because some of the medical quackery is very insidious.
Right. A lot of it is that way. And how do you make them prove efficacy? The problem is it's hard to administer the enforcement of that without infringing on speech. That's the trick to it. I agree with the principle that it does cross over into yelling fire in a crowded theater. I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly the right direction. That you need to reason this out. And the problem is that how do you put that into practice without curtailing speech, without chilling speech?
And then how do you, once you've discovered it, how do you deal with because I don't know if you've ever been brave enough to hop onto those anti-vaxxer threads, but they're just about as crazy as vegans. They are dead set that anything that you could possibly say in favor of vaccines you're just a corporate shill for big pharma.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you use the brightness of exposure to deal with stuff like that when they just don't want to fucking listen to you?
Well, yeah. I mean, when somebody gets so self-righteous that they're immune to further discussion, I drop the discussion with them. I mean, you saw me the other day when we were encountered by those vegans.
Yeah.
I threw truth at them and then ran away.
And then they spent the rest of that thread laughing at you for being wrong and blocking them because, I guess that's a way to win. Just block us. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, I ignore the foaming, frothing at the mouth old men down on Skid Row too. I block them too. I live for their tears. I live for the laughter.
They first tried to say you deleted the tweets, and then I hopped on and was like, they're still right there. What the fuck are you talking about? And then they're like, oh, guess you blocked them. And I'm just,
These guys are brilliant. Learn to Twitter, bitches. Anyway, that's
you can't reason people out of stupid, says Faithless. No, you can't.
No, and you cannot reason with people who are of that mindset, because they were so thoroughly convinced that they are on the side of the angels and they've got it all figured out. And in point of fact, there's been times in my life I've been there. I've been that person. And so I'm not unkind necessarily about it, unless they're unkind to me. Then I'll be briefly unkind and
Yeah.
explained that the discussion's at an end and goodbye. But the yeah, the P treatment. I was reading Chadwick's the uh, comment. Do I need to say more about woo medicine? Yeah, there's a lot of quackery out there, and there's let's see. He says, "I'm sorry, but I feel like this is real simple. If what you're telling people to do is dangerous for them, that does not fall under free speech." That's true. I hear you, and but here's the thing. Here's the other side of that to me is that if what you're telling them, how do you know that what you're telling them is uh, stupid? If you're saying, hey, if you have a migraine headache, go out and sit under an apple tree under a fall night and you know uh, rest your eyes and stare at the stars, and the stars will cure you.
Yeah.
Uh, it's absolute bullshit. And but will it really hurt? Probably not really. So how do you prove harm? How do you prove harm? That's the problem. Is we have courts, and we have to decide this in courts. We have to decide this in a systematic way that provides the same bar of justice for everyone.
See, for me, I'm okay with adults falling for this crap because they're adults. Do you know what I mean?
When does a person become an adult? Is it age based?
Well,
Do
okay.
they have to pass a test? I think they should have to pass a test, actually.
When people hit the age of majority and they otherwise seem like they have control of their faculties,
Yeah.
and they fall for something like this, with very few exceptions. Like if you're terminally ill and somebody's preying on you, that's fucked up. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're
pretty close to that myself.
If you're fairly healthy and you have like a few things wrong with you and you fall for woo woo crap, and that's up to you, I think. When it starts affecting the terminally ill, when it starts affecting kids, who can't say no, I don't want to do this, or make their own decision, or they're clouded, being terminally ill, they're clouded by emotion of I don't want to leave my family, I don't want to die, I don't you know what I mean?
Sure.
That's when I get angry. Otherwise, I say let Darwin have them.
Right. The problem is that Dr. Darwin takes a lot of kind and decent, and he takes the gullible.
He does take the gullible.
It's there's something salutary about having a vein of innocence that runs through your society. It's one of the things that, honestly, all kidding aside, I've always liked about Canada. I did a lot of consulting in a place called Kelowna. You probably know where that is.
Yeah.
And also spent some time in Montreal and Victoria.
Love Montreal.
Oh yeah. Those people were so kind and so decent to me. After being, and I had been doing consulting gigs in New York City. it was like I felt like a little puppy being welcomed in by a warm, friendly family.
Yeah.
And when I went to Kelowna, the second time I went back, they were there at the airport to greet me and hugged me.
Yeah, that's
I went over to their homes. I went over to their homes for dinner.
Yep.
I got back and said, "Where are your expenses?" I was eating, and all these other people. What are all these presents? Well, I bought them all gifts because I didn't spend any money on meals. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true story. So, and I always liked that. I I want to try and preserve that, and I don't want Dr. Darwin to root all that out and make us a bunch of flinty-eyed,
Cynical assholes.
cynical assholes. Exactly, exactly. Uh, just kind of, looking around, looking every nook and cranny, looking for the next thing that's going to get us. I don't know why I'm on a rant this morning. I've done like 98% of the talking. Say something.
Will Honorless says
I'm turning it into the Skep Talk show.
Will Honorless says Canada has a lot of places that you can't walk unless you want to be found in tiny pieces, if you're found at all. Well, that's only if you go and fuck with the bears. Don't fuck with the bears.
Yeah, and don't speak English in Quebec.
That too.
Yeah. Thank you, Locke.
Oh, excuse me.
Bless you, bless you, bless
Couldn't
you.
get to the mute button in time.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's Canada's a great place to be. Generally, like when I went to the States, because I got to go for I took American history in grade 11, and we went to we did like a 4-day trip. We went to Washington, D.C. with a pit stop, like an overnight stop in Gettysburg.
Sure.
So, and I noticed the demeanor between Americans and Canadians. It's hugely different.
Oh.
It's hugely different. Like,
we're the crass cousins.
And you guys are terrible to your freaking, like your fast food employees or your low level.
They expect us to beat them. They like that.
Well, I ordered some dinner. I was in the National Mall in Washington.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I went to the food court and I went to order some dinner, like some Subway or something. And there's this poor little Spanish girl from behind the counter, like probably maybe 5 years older than me at this. I was like 16. She couldn't have been more than 21. Like she was young. Mm-hmm. And before I do my order, there's someone ahead of me who's bitching at her because her son didn't like his sub that they ordered and he ate half of. And then she wanted this girl to take it back and then refund her money.
Yeah.
And this girl's like, no, I'm sorry, ma'am. He's eaten like most of it. Like, I'm not going to refund you your money because he's decided halfway through that he doesn't want it. Like, that's not how this works. Like, and it's what you ordered. We didn't make a mistake. This isn't like, it's not like we gave you something different. This is what you ordered. Yeah. And she just started screaming at this poor girl. Like, just screaming at her.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, dude, your kid didn't want the sandwich. It's not her fault.
It wouldn't even matter if there had been a mouse in the sandwich. You don't scream at anybody because that never does anything. That's all about you.
Yeah.
If you scream at somebody.
Well, and the kid was right there, like, yeah, stupidly, like right there with the mom. And I'm
I was supposed to learn how to be an asshole too.
Well, so when it got to be my turn, because I knew she was Spanish because she could barely speak English, right? Mm-hmm. Like she kept lapsing into Spanish.
Yeah.
So I walked up to her when I ordered, and I just started speaking to her in her language. And I was very nice to her. Mm. And I gave her a big tip.
Well, that was nice.
And because it was just, I couldn't watch that and then not be the opposite. Do you know what I mean? Like
you see the scales so horribly misbalanced, and you want to climb up in the side of the scales that's way up in the air.
Yeah, here, let me help you out here and push this back into normalcy here.
Probably made her feel a lot better, actually.
Oh, she thanked me.
Yeah, and no, I don't doubt that she felt a lot better. It was a blow for the the sides of the angels. That was a good thing. So anyway, what was I saw something interesting.
Cities aren't known for their kindness.
Yeah.
True, DC is a horrible, horrible city. I'd rather live in the streets of Detroit. Oh, damn, Chadwick.
I know. Faithless says our technology has halted our progress as a species. Okay, I'm having a hard time understanding the context of that, I guess. Without a force that impels humanity to improve, we will stagnate and regress.
I think it's not the technology's fault. I think it's our infancy with the technology and our it's like any kid with a new toy, right? We're gonna hit the loudest button for as long as possible.
Right.
Till we figure out how everything works.
Yeah.
And I think we're still, because we've developed some insane technology.
Yes, we have. And they're developing even insaner technology.
Yeah. And I think we have to catch up with it. I think we're still learning our inventions. Because even an inventor, when they invent something, they're like, oh, what does this do now? Right? Like they're learning, they're experimenting with their invention. They're figuring out what, like, we're still learning what we've created. And I don't think it's stagnating us. I think we're stagnating us. I think we're looking at the wrong parts of our technology, like the flashy parts, and we've been distracted.
Yep. Here's the thing about I studied a book in college called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kuhn, and it's a classic in the field of understanding how science moves forward and how things change.
Right.
This is not this wasn't folk fiction like Future Shock or Trends or any that this was a very profound work. And he introduced the idea of paradigmatic shift or paradigms and paradigmatic shifts. Paradigms are just a way of thinking about a process or a problem or or a process that solves a problem. And that groups of paradigms come together as a part of a larger paradigm. It's almost like there's a paradigm class, and the members of the paradigm class inherit characteristics from the parent class. At any rate, so what happens is that when there is enough technology shift, there's a paradigm shift. Think about the paradigm shifts that we've come that are happening in front of our eyes right now. When I was growing up, the most important thing you could have in your home was not a television set. You know what it was?
What?
A telephone.
Makes sense.
Everybody had one telephone. Some people had party lines, which means that you only answered your phone when it rang your ring, like it was, one long and two shorts. That was your ring, and that meant someone was calling you. If you heard two shorts but no long, that meant it was the person down the street, and they would answer their phone.
Yeah,
I'm serious. That's where phones used to work. So
I've seen families who had that set up.
So when I was little, just before we left the United States, I remember I was in about the first grade. We had a television set. Dad brought home a television set, and this thing was, it was a black and white tube, probably 14 inches across.
Yeah,
about the size of a refrigerator, right?
Yep.
And had with a mahogany cabinet and everything. And
knobs.
Knobs. Oh yeah, heck yes.
Tuning knob, channel knob, on and off.
Had the tuning, the clunk 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 channel knob, and so I thought that was the most amazing thing ever. Then we went to Belgium. I had no TV for years and years, and immersed myself in books. Then came back to the United States, and everything had changed. They not only had TVs, everybody had one in their
Yeah.
home. And not only that, they were introducing something new, color TV. They were
Did
having
they have the
color
remote
TV.
control yet?
Yeah, and remote controls were just being invented. The remote controls back then had a cable that ran to your TV.
They should still have that. And you won't frickin' lose the damn thing.
Exactly. So I got I got to where I was watching a lot of TV, and went off to college, and I saw my first computer. I took my first and the only computer course for somebody who spent 30 years in IT as a systems administrator. I took a lot of uh, coursework, but none of it was from a university except this one course in Fortran 4 in 1971 or two, and I was absolutely fascinated by the potential of computers. But the business of punching cards and feeding them in was, I just thought, this is just misery. You
That's
make
what
one
my
mistake.
grandfather did.
That's right.
He was before he retired, before he became his own businessman. He started his own business fixing computers in the 90s.
I'll tell you a fun story about being in the Navy and having punch card machines on ships. This happened aboard the USS. Wasn't the Enterprise? It was the Forrestal, I believe. It's an aircraft carrier. They had an IBM 360 on it with a punch card machine. The young ensign, who had gone through the same school as I did a couple of years before me, bent over the card, the drum that feeds the cards in, and his tie got caught in the drum, and it rolled over, and it sucked him down, and it was strangling him, and people heard the commotion in the office. Somebody came running over, and fortunately, one thing you realize is that every enlisted man on board a U.S. Navy ship carries a knife. Everyone carries a knife, and they had to cut his tie off. It wrecked the machine. They had to service the machine. It was just he actually got in trouble for catching his tie in it. But that was why that if you were stationed on a Navy ship and you had you were assigned to those spaces where there was a punch card machine, you had to wear a clip-on tie.
Makes sense.
That's actually Navy regulations. So, and just a little bit of interesting Navy arcana there for the
yeah, my grandfather used to be he was a programmer.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he was the one that was punching the cards.
Yes, absolutely.
In the 60s and 70s, right? He was the card puncher, and then he would organize everything. Like he's got some stories.
Oh yeah, I'm sure of that. Do not fold, spindle, or mutilate, says Thoughts from the Dryer, and that's exactly what the IBM 80 column card said on the bottom. Pulled that one out from memory.
My dad's punch card for the UNIVAC was featured on his yearbook. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Shag carpet plus Legos equals instant minefield. Oh damn, Chadwick.
Yeah.
Hope that you didn't learn that the hard way.
No, man.
I'm not looking forward to Legos.
You learn to shuffle your feet.
The kids are still too young for Legos just yet.
Yeah, still a choking hazard.
They don't have them yet, but I can't wait. I love Lego.
Shuffle your feet. Just learn to do that.
I already do.
Yeah, sure.
When you're a blind parent,
yeah, you don't know what you're going to run into.
You don't pick up your feet when your children are around. Either you're going to step on them or you're going to step on their toys.
Right. Didn't think about that. Yeah. And Thoughts from the Dryer says punch cards came in your bills, returned with payment. That's true. In fact, our paychecks in the Navy were punch cards. the actual punch cards that came out before the LES system came into being. Yeah.
I have hardwood
Sarah's,
floors for a reason.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Sarah says Hot Wheels were worse for my health than Legos.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I've tripped over. I've tripped, been hurt by, cut, beat up by every kind of toy you can think of. I have been burned by chemistry sets. I have cut my hand open with a magic thing, with a magic mirror that broke.
Or my least favorite of all, when you just finally get the screaming baby to sleep,
Yeah,
and you think all of the loud toys have been turned off,
yeah,
except for one,
right.
and you just happen to trip over it, and
Yep,
it goes off.
right. Absolutely.
It's like, shut up! Shut up! I just got the baby to sleep. Shut up!
Man, I remember that. I remember, just please don't wake up. Just please let me get a little bit of rest. And
Ooh, Hot Wheels plus hardwood stairs equals mom falling downstairs. Yeah,
yeah, that's for sure.
yeah.
I had a Navy jet stabbed into the soft part of my foot. Nice, Johnny. Ow. And yeah, EU regulations, toys require hazmat suits next. Absolutely.
Yep.
It's magic because it makes you bleed. Nice, Will. Yep. That one demonic toy that every child has that will go off for no reason in the middle of the night in the bottom of the toy box. You're frantically throwing toys left and right out of it, trying to shut that son of.
Furbies.
No,
I had a
Furbies.
Furby,
Yeah.
and when we moved, I was 11, and we moved to a new house, and my Furby was like, we had just moved, and all of our boxes, like my boxes, had been put in my room, and I was going to start unpacking them the next day. And I was laying in bed, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yes.
and I get woken up by, "Give me a hug." And it's like I'm kicking this box where the Furby is. It's like, and instead of shutting up, it goes, "Whoa, loud!"
It's like it's mocking you.
It is. It was. It was like
They have secret, hateful souls, and they're bewitched by the wizards of fairy.
Will Honorless says we don't talk about Furbies.
There's some obnoxious toys that kids have
And
had.
they were so expensive. They were
Yes.
like $80, and the thing you could hold it in your hand.
Right. High unit cost, very profitable, easy to ship, doesn't take up much store space. That is a perfect toy from a marketing standpoint.
I remember the year that I got my Furby, and my stepmom got one, and my uncle got one, and I think my dad got one.
Yes.
And we all had them sitting, and they were like talking to each other. And it was so weird.
Yeah. Yeah. That's. Oh, yeah. And Sarah Chadwick says, then there was Strangle Me Elmo. Tickle Me Elmo, I mean.
Strangle me. Yeah.
That's what you wanted to do. Let's see. Duck Dog says my dad's roommate was an electrical engineer that found the best way to sort UNIVAC cars was to a custom box. He and Dad had side business building and selling them to other engineering students.
That's
Interesting.
cool.
Very cool.
Engineers are so freaking engineering.
Yeah, they are
Innovative.
I was raised by an engineer. You know, my dad actually has a PhD in systems engineering, a master's degree in aeronautical engineering.
Oh wow.
And undergraduate degree in naval engineering. He's an engineer's engineer. He was assistant dean of the engineering school at Auburn University.
Oh wow.
He's a guy. You know, he's published a thesis that they used to create the heat shields for the. They use his math to create math he developed just from his own brain. to develop the heat shields for all of the uh, Apollo, Gemini, and
Nice.
Mercury spacecraft. And
That's cool.
it also went in. They also used some of his math to do stuff with the space shuttle for the ablative surfaces. He solved the problem of how to measure the heat transfer between regions in a certain type of three-dimensional geometry.
That's really cool.
And yeah, it was published in a big time as a big time paper, and he interesting story about that. He had completed his thesis in something else. 2 weeks before he submitted his final thesis, a guy in Germany did a work that bordered on some of what Dad was talking about. And his
Okay.
thesis advisor told him that his thesis might not be accepted.
Hmm.
My dad had to abandon that thesis, and he was about to be transferred. So he was about to leave University of Michigan without a degree. So
Ooh,
here's what he did. He said, "What can I do just with my head?" And he thought up that problem and solved it.
that's insane. That's awesome. What
It's
a
hard.
smart guy.
He's a smart man. I mean, he has a mind for math like nobody, and yet he's the most affable, personable, open, outgoing, verbal man you've ever heard.
Hmm.
He's and I get that from him. I don't have all his math. I got a little bit of his math, and I'm very much like him. People say that our personalities are so alike. It's scary. And he's still running around. In fact, he texted me. I text him back, see what's up. But yeah, he's 91 years old.
Look at him go texting and everything.
Oh,
My
are you kidding?
my my grandma got an iPad for Christmas, I think 2 years ago, and she's like, I have no idea how to use this thing. My poor grandma. My grandpa's, the programmer, and he
Yeah,
knows all of
yeah,
the technology.
sure,
And then I tried explaining MSN to my grandma when I was a
sure.
teenager, and
Yeah,
she's like, "So it's like email?" And I'm like, "Sort of,
yeah,
except instant." She's like, "What do you mean instant?" I'm like, "Well, there's somebody sitting on at their computer waiting for me to talk to them,
yeah,
and then they're going to talk back to me right away."
right.
And she's like, "Oh, that's cool." Oh, grandma.
Oh, Faithless says, I hate Apple tech. I am with you, Faithless. Despise all things Apple. Period. Dot. They do nothing good anymore. They are truly evil.
Well, and I'm getting really, it sucks because with all of the things that they're doing, it's like I don't really want to support them anymore, but
Yep.
Android hasn't really like
Stepped up.
they haven't really stepped up. Their Google Talkback, which is what their voice screen reader is called, is not as integrated into the Android platform.
No, that was that's the thing is that when a company is doing evil, sometimes they do good too.
Yeah,
And there are some good things in Apple, that type of thing being one, but the bad is starting to outweigh the good, in my opinion.
it is. It's like if I were like if this computer, if something were to happen to this computer and it were to die,
Yeah,
I would probably unfortunately go back to Windows and just get the free screen reading program called NVDA.
yeah,
Um, with the because of the most of the repair shit that I really don't agree with Apple. The right to repair all that crap, and where they're gonna charge
yeah,
you the cost of a new MacBook to fix your MacBook.
yeah.
That's absolutely ridiculous to me.
That's a good point. Now, Faithless says Google is evil too. Now, I agree,
Yeah.
and they are. Uh, Google is quietly taking your information if you're not aware of it, and it will take as much as information as you don't prohibit them from taking. And I'm wondering if those prohibitions work that well. I know it sounds like paranoid, and I'm not a nutbag or anything, but at least I don't know.
It's not like they're
I don't
being
know.
quiet about
Your
it.
mileage may vary on that one, but
Google's not exactly being quiet about it either.
no, they're not.
They're not being quiet about the fact that they're taking the information. They're not being quiet about the fact that they're using other platforms that they've purchased, YouTube,
Yep.
to censor people. But they have the monopoly on it, so we don't really have a choice but to use them.
Oh, yeah. How many backdoors and snoopware programs are hidden on our systems? No way
All
to
of
really
them.
tell. No way to really tell. Truly.
All of them, that's what I say.
The only way that you can detect that is by looking at what programmers call I/O, input output, and you
Yeah.
would have to detect something being read from your computer. The problem is that we send so much data, and most of it is encrypted in some way or another, that somewhere in that reams and reams and reams of information, a little backdoor could be snooping in on what you're doing, where you're going, all that sort of thing. That's why we have to guard our freedoms jealously. And when we catch someone violating those freedoms, if you're going to say that, well, the Fourth Amendment and the Ninth Amendment imply a right of privacy, which I think they probably do, at least by precedent, judicial precedent. And certainly there's some statutory stuff about that, at least in special cases like medical privacy, that we have to come down hard on people who violate that. We have to take those people and put them in jail for a long time.
And then don't give them access to the fucking internet. What's with that?
Well, yeah, it's hard to take someone's access away from the internet. You basically have to catch them on the internet.
But why do people in jail get computer time?
Oh, I agree. I thought you meant once they're out. The only way you could people who do that stuff, man, I really my recommendations are not responsible. They're so bloodthirsty. I really hate people getting their information stolen. And those people belong in jail for a long time. Yeah. Here's the problem with jail. It'd be interesting you talk about jail, because if you just put people in prison and you take each one out for a 1-hour walk in chains every day and then put them back in their cell for 23 hours by themselves, or even with another person, if they're with another person, sooner or later they'll fight and kill each other.
Yep.
Okay, or kill one will kill the other. Or if they're alone, they'll go crazy.
Yep.
Both those outcomes are unacceptable to administer. It costs too much to administer a prison of crazy people. It costs too much to administer a prison where people are killing one another.
Yeah.
So you make a deal, and it's an uneasy deal with the prisoners, that for a modicum of civility, a modicum of good conduct, they can go out, enjoy themselves in the prison yards, and have a little bit of freedom to walk around the prison grounds before they get locked back up. And for that, all they have to do is not kill each other, not get into fights, and not do drugs. And part of that has been
not pick fights with the guards.
Right. Part of that has been, they want internet access, because a lot of them will say, well, I want to study. And there's a lot of online courseware. We don't allocate a lot of money for prisons. Sanguine will be the first to tell you that.
People, the left would have you think that we spend almost as much money on prison as we do on the military.
Right.
But I think if you actually go in and look at prisons, you're going to be like, there's not much money being spent here.
No, there's not. And there's well, anyway, you when you um when you look and see um when you look and see the people who live, breathe air, consume resources, offer nothing, will do nothing but ever be a cost to society. Is there a um, if they are a drain on society that way, is there a case to be made for cutting them off from society?
I like George Carlin's idea. Give them Wyoming,
Right.
fence it off, and just
that's
let
kind
them
of,
go.
that's kind of what I'm talking about. Except you'd have to be giving them Yellowstone Park. So think
Well,
about that.
that's true.
Uh, but perhaps eastern Colorado
Perhaps,
and
yeah.
western Kansas be just as well, in the sweltering sun and the flat, windy plains. Um, the the but seriously, there are a lot of people who do nothing to contribute anything to society.
Or those career criminals that when they get sent back to jail, like you see them on cop videos. Oh, hey, I'm going back to jail. I get to see my homies. I get to see my friends. It's like, you're not supposed to want to go back to jail, dude.
Why do we not euthanize them? Why would we not euthanize them? What would be the cost to society?
I think people get hung up on the, if I euthanize somebody because they're bad, I'm just as bad as they are thing.
Yep.
Um,
But are you? It's an interesting philosophical question to talk about. I'm not saying I'm in favor of anything like that. I don't think that you can. I don't think that's responsible, and I don't think you lose the right to life, liberty, and happiness simply because you're a loser. But if it ever came down to where it was hurting society so much, would we take those steps, or would we let society perish?
That's a good question.
And devolve into a post-apocalyptic, Mad Max Thunderdome kind of thing.
Chadwick says, "Screw that! Send them all to Antarctica."
Well, that's
But then, how come they get the places that we still have to explore? That's not cool.
Yeah, it's very, very confusing to future anthropologists too. But, at any rate, it's 10 a.m. I didn't know how long you wanted to go today.
I'm probably gonna go, or probably gonna cut it off in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Just because I know Pincalo needs some assistance with the kids.
I understand. My voice is just, it's flagging.
Yeah.
I'm talked out. I'm so sorry. I will get better. Everybody knows that I've had a cold.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to bring it to the show, but there it is.
It's all good.
I'm talking from. I feel like I'm talking out of my adenoids.
Oh, that sucks.
Out of the front of my nose or something. It's really funny.
I hate that.
Faithless says that's the premise of Atlas Shrugged. Yes, it is, and that you're not wrong, Faithless. That's actually a very fine insight there. Ayn Rand, when she wrote Atlas Shrugged on the heels of having written The Fountainhead, wanted to show what happened when the people who support society, Atlas with the world on his shoulders, when Atlas shrugs, and the world falls off, and what happens when the productive people leave society. I mean, if you read it, she wrote it as though it was a literal novel of the 1930s, 1940s stripe. she wrote it in that style, but it really reads almost like it's so it's such fantasy. The characters are paper thin.
Yeah.
There's there are no children. There are no children. These evidently the children are manufactured on a farm someplace. And
Oh, okay.
there's a guy in charge of that. Nobody ever talks about children. Nobody ever talks about the future or anything like that. They just talk about themselves and how important they are. And that's the other side is that what she regarded as unimportant, I regard as a coarsening of society, and she never admitted that. Even in late in life, I saw interviews with her, and she held fast to that objectivist standard. Ruined a lot of people's lives, including, I think, hers.
I think she was too hard-headed for her own good.
But she was. She's too horny too. She never should have had sex with Nathaniel Brandon. Cuckolded her own husband. What an evil bitch. Anyway, sorry.
Chadwick says
go there.
they would have to build their own society, give them a purpose in life, and if not, they die. I think that's a good. It's just, where would we put them?
Well, they're not going to build any kind of society. They're going to take from each other, and cannibalism. Is it kinder to just put them down? They're, and I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't have any hard and fast answers. Hawkzilla says you already have your answer, Skep. I love our chat. This chat
I do
is
too.
awesome. I mean, it's just like the best chat I've ever run into. This is a lot of these folks are veterans of Minions, and
move all the good people out of Canada. How let them have that? Hell no.
Faithless says Venezuela.
Yeah, that's a good spot. Yeah, don't give these assholes all the good natural resources. Come on now.
That's right. We'll give them northeastern Venezuela. We'll take the southwest and western part where the oil is.
Exactly.
They can have the mosquitoes.
Exactly.
Chadwick going back to a perennial favorite, Antarctica. Very good. Blind loves the chat, but does she love the proximity badgers?
They got scared by all the Mortal Kombat noises last night, so they're hiding.
Yeah. Then that would prove our point that they are not needed in society. If they cannot make it on their own in their own society, they don't need to be a nurse.
In ours.
In ours. Yeah, Chadwick. Whoa. Rough take on that. Yeah, that's harsh, but I don't think you're wrong.
New year, new debt. I replaced my sidearm with
my scythe with a military grade 762.
Grade. Yeah, nice.
No outrunning me now. Hey, Death.
You're just in time for us to sign off.
I know. I was just going to say, want to thank chat for coming out with us today, and bringing in the new year, and all you guys are awesome for coming out, listen to us ramble on.
Yes.
We didn't even talk about resolutions. I've got a whole raft of things. We can pick it up tomorrow and talk about resolutions and what our plans are for 2019, where we'd like to be this time next year. And then maybe what we can do next year is come back, listen to the stream from today and tomorrow, and laugh at what our predictions were.
That sounds like fun.
We'll write a few things down. We'll do that in a year. But anyway, thanks guys for being with us. Blind and I just, we do this out of just because we love doing this stuff.
Yes.
We love spending time with you. And we're friends. We enjoy talking together. We enjoy talking with you, and love having a different kind of a show where chat really is a player in the show,
Yeah.
and very different from any other stream I'm on. So, with that, you want to take us out?
Yeah, I want to say again, Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you guys for coming out and chilling with us this morning. And I just real quick want to give a shout out. I know he doesn't watch this, but if anyone who does know him, Sunday P our best. I'm glad he's home, out of the hospital. I gotta get his ass on the show at some point. I like AP. But
Oh yeah,
yeah,
AP, absolutely. Yeah, get well, buddy.
Get well. Stay calm. You had a great show last night. Glad I could ring in the new year with you, dude. And I hope everyone has a good New Year's Day. We're going out to have dinner with my grandparents tonight, so that'll be fun.
And Blind Press will be on my show tomorrow night.
Yes, I will.
All right.
So come and say hello to us tomorrow morning, same time, same place, and hope you guys have an awesome day. We'll see you tomorrow. Stay safe out there, guys.
Happy New Year. Be careful out there.